meeting to order. Can everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the recording secretary, please do the roll call.
Board Member Barskan,
Present.
Board Member Burns,
Present.
Board Member Dursey,
Here.
Board Member Ingram,
Here.
Board Member Watkins,
Here.
Board Member Woomer,
Here.
and Chair Irwin.
Here. And do we have to get the minutes approved, or? Has anybody had a chance to look through the minutes?
Do we need a motion for approval?
Yes.
I move approval of minutes as submitted.
A second. All right, minutes are approved. Item number 5, announcements, presentations.
We have nothing.
All right. Item number 6 is public comments. Members of the public are invited to address the Oversight Board on issues that are within the Oversight Board's purview and not on the agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. And our first speaker this afternoon is going to be Kathy Carlson.
Good afternoon,
Ms. Carlson.
Madam Chair and members of the board. A couple of things. I was happy to learn from Mr. Mitnick that going forward you won't be using the terms founding fathers anymore. I found it to be sexist and offensive last week, and this is the year 2012. It's more appropriate just to say founders so that you don't offend other people. There were women that were part of the beginning of the city of Thousand Oaks, and I, for one, feel that it is not appropriate to say founding fathers anymore. So enough of that. Thank you, Mr. Mitnick, for getting modern. And last week, also one more thing on. I'm concerned about the article in the Acorn. It was very well written. What I'm concerned about is this. It appears that it's a done deal and that the committee is superfluous. Why? Because the school districts feels they were told by the city that it's pretty much a done deal and the money's going to come. So in the article from it's not recording? Now it is, huh? As I said, the article from the Acorn by Anna B. Thomas, she's not here yet. The superintendent, who may have to recuse himself at some point during these meetings, says that the actual pass-through agreements are unlikely to be ruled as not an enforceable obligation. Double negative, but what he's saying is that you won't find it to be bad. You're going to vote for the money for the school district. It's possible, but it's unlikely that we'll lose that money. And then their financial officer, who's honest as the day is long, said, well, we were told by the city to go forward. They are confident that the money is going to be there. So I don't like to read that in the paper, that you guys could just stay home, huh? If you're not going to be critical, and if the school district feels like, boy, it's a done deal. So I don't like that. I just want to make sure that there isn't any under the table agreements already, because you're supposed to be looking at this objectively, all the enforceable obligations, and I hope you do that. Okay, the last thing, I mentioned that I didn't feel that the vote for the money to go to the school district is urgent at all. I gave you my reasons, and one of them was because of the liquefaction area and the fault very close to Kelly Road. I printed out from the state architect's office and from California Watch. There was a big scandal last fall. They discovered that the state architect's office was years in arrears of doing the seismic studies for public schools. So this report will show you that. So the reason is because I don't think you should spend the money doing the storm drains for a future project that the city wants to spend money on. Thank you. Do I give it to the recording secretary?
Yes, please. Thank you, Ms. Carlson. Our next speaker is Jim Baker.
Thank you. I want to apologize for my attire. I came right off the football field. 3 o'clock meetings are a little difficult to make when you're in spring practice, but I do appreciate you listening to my concerns and hopefully understanding our situation at Westlake High School. In 1993, we went through we had an opportunity to start building our stadium, and in 2003 we actually got our first phase done, and I've been very hopeful that the power lines along Thousand Oaks Boulevard would be undergrounded so that we could continue our opportunities to build complete the stadium that we have, which would allow us to put bleachers on the south side of our stadium. We again started in 1993 in putting together a plan. The plan was a 3-phase plan, and we have completed 2 of those phases. Because of the inadequacy of the size of our stadium, we've had to move some of our playoff games as well as some of our activities that we have in the stadium because we just simply don't have enough seating to accommodate the amount of crowds that we get at the games. We've been very, very happy with working with the city, and we are, as I said the last time I was in here, the fields at not only Westlake High School but Thousand Oaks High School and Newberry Park High School is a dream come through for every one of the schools. The amount of use that those stadiums get. I'm the athletic coordinator at Westlake, and from 7 o'clock in the morning you can drive down Thousand Oaks Boulevard and you can see soccer going on at 7 o'clock in the morning, and usually it doesn't stop until well into the evening, the end of our day using those fields. So it's something that will be very, very beneficial to our school, something that will bring us up to the other schools in our district to allow us to build those stadium bleachers on the south side. We've been prohibited to do that because of the power lines that are along Thousand Oaks Boulevard. We knew that the redevelopment agency was going to fund those, and we were anxiously waiting so that we could move forward with the rest of our plan. Obviously, we're here to talk about that, and we're hoping that we can continue with our plans, and we're hoping that you will support the efforts to underground those power lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach Baker. Next speaker is Mr. Kidwai.
I begin in the name of God, who is most beneficial, most merciful. My name is Nick Iqbal Kidwai, resident of Newberry Park and executive director of Concerned Citizens since '93. As usual, I don't come here as a happy camper. I'm glad that the coach, I think he is AWOL also, complained about the 3 o'clock hour. Cities that are mature and don't need citizen participation, like Glendale or Culver City, have their city council meetings at 1 and other meetings at 11:30. Only retired fogies, old fogies, and people that have a vested interest show up. And it was disgusting that the change was made from 2 to 3 o'clock, and nobody on the dais even had the courage or thinking of the citizen, even though we have a citizen's representative also, to ask for at least a minimum of 5 o'clock or maybe 6 o'clock for the meetings. We are paying, Reagan said, I paid for that mic, and I will say I pay for that camera, and that camera is purposely switched off, that I have to use my own small little camera to record the hearings, so that there must be something that you people are doing that you don't want the residents to know. It's just obvious. That's been the history of this agency. I was on the budget task force. We made 83 recommendations. Most of them cost money to implement. And the mayor was promised by the city manager that the redevelopment agency agenda would be separately agendized, but it was never done. And that's just one of the small things. The minutes, I mean, it's disgusting that you folks approve the minutes. They are un-American. I mean, these are the building blocks of democracy. And if you read the minutes, you won't know what happened. My name is there, the other person's name is there. It doesn't say anything as to even if we spoke for or against it. and to limit us to 3 minutes and have the city manager espouse for 1 hour, I mean, we've lost the government. You're competing with the independent sector. Caruso gets the land next door for $1. He has the umami burger, but you have the cinema there. Advertising on city property at no charge with no contract when you have Movico and others competing for the same thing and paying top dollar. And this is what is wrong with the government when it gets into the private partnership and goes into this thing, which is the debt of this agency is something like $160 million. And so if 2 or 3 million has been spent on good things, the rest has been spent on disgusting things, like $1 million a year in salaries. I mean, that's just way too much money to spend to maintain the books for this agency. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Kidwai. Item 7A, action items, options for oversight board legal representation, and Mr. Noonan, our assistant city attorney, will present a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Again, my name is Chris Norman. I'm with the City Attorney's Office for Thousand Oaks. At the last meeting, the board had wanted some information about how to obtain outside legal advice. As I had advised at the last meeting, our office is in a conflict situation and cannot provide that legal advice to you. We surveyed some other cities and oversight boards to see how they selected outside counsel, and we have basically 3 ways we can go about it. The most formal way would be to issue a request for a proposal. This is what the cities of Ventura and Pomona have done, and we would try to solicit interest from outside attorneys to give legal representation to you. As part of that process, we would recommend that the board appoint a person or a subcommittee to help staff pick an attorney for the board. That process is a little time consuming. By the time the RFP goes out and you get responses, you go through them, it could be a few weeks, for example, to have that happen. Another method that's been used, it's a little more informal, would be to have the board put together a subcommittee to review applications that would be submitted by staff. We would basically be short-circuiting the formal request for proposal process. Basically pick up the phone and find some attorneys who are interested in representing this board. Have the subcommittee look at those, vet those, and make a final recommendation to the oversight board at its next meeting, hopefully. Finally, the quickest and easiest way, and the way that staff is recommending, would just be to delegate the selection of the attorney to staff, and we would find an attorney, enter into an agreement, and have that attorney available for you as soon as possible. One other part of this that we're recommending to you is the cost of legal representation is an issue that we're not sure how the Department of Finance is going to judge and how that's going to be paid, whether it'll be paid as a separate line item on the recognized obligation payment schedule that Mr. Adams will go through with you later today, or whether that'll be part of the city's administrative budget allocation. Because of this unknown, staff is recommending that the board use outside legal counsel in a very precise manner through written questions that the board would adopt, that we could submit to outside legal counsel, who would then draft a formal written response which would be submitted to each of you. This would save on attorney's fees and I think make the meetings go by a lot faster. But it is up to you. If you want to go a different direction or combine some of these, we'd be happy to entertain those. If you want to go through the RFP process, I've actually prepared one that you can review and approve here today. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Questions for staff? Somebody like,
If the staff were to make the selection, you wouldn't do an RFP?
Probably, no.
somebody like to make a motion?
I will, well, I just, more comment first. My reading of this is, I think that this particular cost of the oversight committee is, if it's a part of the oversight committee budget, oversight board budget, then it should be part of the administrative budget. I don't think it should be on the ROPS. That's number one. I think the other option, an option or I think it's similar to 3, except have staff come back, rather than just making that election, have staff come back with a recommendation to be approved by the board, if that makes sense. Rather than have staff contract directly, have staff come back, not a formal RFP, but more of a, let's call it RFQ situation where they go out and I'm sure staff attorneys know 2 or 3 firms that do this for other cities and that type of thing, so they just get a couple attorneys that are interested and then come back to the board with a recommendation rather than just contracting automatically. So
Come back with one recommendation?
that's fine with me.
And then present it to the board.
And then present to the board, correct.
I mean, I would feel comfortable with that. Does anybody else? Dr. Barstead?
Yeah, I like that approach too, and, you know, with that recommendation, just a brief summary of the qualifications of that particular attorney and firm, and that gives me all the confidence I need. I completely agree that an RFP at this point would be time consuming. We're not anticipating a large expenditure of funds, but we're looking for competitive fees and things like that, so I think it's a good suggestion.
I guess my preference would be is for staff to recommend 3 firms to us, and then have a group of us sit and look at it. If there's not supposed to be a conflict of interest, for city council staff to just recommend a firm to us, I'm not real sure where the line is then of, you know, keeping things very black and white. Not that I don't trust you, that's not the issue, but perception is, you know, can be perceived by others as potential for conflict. So if nothing else, I would say bring 3 recommendations of outside firms to us for us to sit and look at their qualifications, maybe spend an hour with them and interview them. And I mean, I realize it's time consuming. All of this is time consuming, but it's just, seems to be the way we usually do business.
Mr. Watkins, did you have a comment?
I would be comfortable with staff going through, contacting firms that they're familiar with, going through the interview process and bringing back a recommendation.
One recommendation then. Okay,
Yes.
so we have a few different opinions here. Does, Mr. Jersey, was yours a motion?
Yes, mine's a motion. Mine
Okay.
will be a motion just to have the staff come back with a recommendation to be approved by the board.
All right, do we have a second on that
I'll
motion?
second that.
Mr. Wilmer, did you have a comment?
Is that without just one recommendation, one firm? That's what stands?
Yeah, I believe that's the motion, yeah. As far as my comment goes, I don't feel a need to interview people. I don't feel a need to look over multiple firms, because it's gonna be, I think, a limited service that we're going to get. I am interested in seeing the qualifications of the firm. The one thing I'd wanna be confident of is that they're very, very well versed in redevelopment and municipal law.
All right, so the motion then is to have our city attorney go through potential representatives and bring a single person or firm back to us. Can we have a vote on that, please? Is that a vote? Do we raise our hand here? How do we do this?
The voice vote would be appropriate.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
No.
Do we?
So we have two.
Did the
we have two
recording
now.
secretary get that vote? Who voted which way?
Yes, 6-1,
6
There
to
are
2.
nays.
Boomer, and
5-2.
who else?
Burns.
Now let's do a roll call vote.
Board Member Barstad,
Aye.
Board Member Burns,
No.
Board Member Jersey,
Yes.
Board Member Ingram,
Aye.
Board Member Watkins,
Aye.
Board Member Woomer,
No.
Chair Irwin,
Aye. All right, ready to move on? So action item 7B, the initial draft recognized obligation payment schedule, January through June 2002, and that report will be presented by Scott Mitton, the city attorney. That was city manager, of course. There's no promotion there.
No extra pay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Oversight Board. This is item 8B, and it's in your packet starting on, or 7B, excuse me, starting on page 8. Okay, a little background. Hopefully you've read all the reports and you're up to speed on this. And unfortunately, when the state did this legislation, they created a whole new series of acronyms for us. So I'll do my best not to, I'll explain it first and then I'll refer to them. EOPS is the Enforceable Obligation Payment Schedule, and that's what the redevelopment agency or the successor agency was required to submit to the state, and we've already done that, and that was done by the former redevelopment agency. I think they're one of their last actions on January 24th, and you've seen a copy of that. That was submitted, that was adopted by the redevelopment agency board on the 24th. It was then submitted to the State Department of Finance, that's DOF, on the 26th of January. Now we have what's called the revised obligation payment schedule, or recognized. Sorry, we didn't create these acronyms, or phrases, so recognized, or ROPS. And these ROPS are adopted in 6-month periods. The initial ROPS, it covers the period of January 1, 2012 through June 30th, 2012, so the first half of the calendar year. And we have 2 months to go in that first half of the calendar year. The initial ROPS and the backup material was provided to your board at the first meeting on April 25th. These documents, these ROPS, must be reviewed and approved by the Oversight Board, and that's the item in front of you today with this agenda item. And these were required to be submitted to the state and the county auditor controller by April 15th, and we've done that. What does it say here? Subsequent to submitting the EOPS, there has been, okay, we had contact with the State Department of Finance. Let's go to the next page. And we had to use a series of forms that the state required, and it says we explained before, essentially these are in the 3 categories, okay? The first category is the low and moderate income housing obligations. Second category is the Thousand Oaks Boulevard redevelopment project area, call it area number 2. The third set of obligations is the Newberry Road project area number 5. And this is what we're required to give them. We've done that. Now, we'll go to the next one. Okay, so the category with the 20% low and moderate income housing fund. The State Department of Finance has approved the EOPS, is that correct? Or the ROPS as well? Yeah, okay, with some exception items. Now, in your,
Say that again.
with the housing projects, we're not talking about the Boulevard project area projects or the Newberry Road one. Now, on page 16 of your report, and because it's in very small font, I have to pull my glasses on. The bond issue,
Scott, I want to interrupt you just a
Yeah.
second. John, give me additional copies of those. Last time I didn't print stuff out, and it was all printed out when I got here, so I didn't print it out this time, and now I don't have it. I'm sorry.
oh, you don't have
I
the,
don't have the detailed lists. No.
okay, we can get you one.
Reviewed them on the computer. Reviewed them on the computer, but didn't bring them with me.
No, that's right there.
This one. There you go, Jim.
Thank you.
Anybody else need a copy? Jackie?
Thank you.
There you go. So we're talking from page 16, not 18, page 16. So listed on this page is the bond proceeds, the outstanding debt at 20 million. That's on this list, as well as one of the other loans. Okay, then on page 17, we list some of the projects. Not on this overhead is the Housing Assistance Program for Seniors, the HAPS program. On the list is to continue, I think, what, for a total of 2 years, is that right? Through June of 2013. This is a program, it's about $400,000, was it $200,000 a year? It's $200,000 a year. Benefits 600 low-income seniors and some disabled residents, and it's a quarterly payment to help with their utilities. So this will provide for two years, or through June of 2013, and that longstanding program then will conclude. And we shared with you last time, there are a number of programs like this that benefit low-income seniors that are now going to be over. This is one of them. So the recommendation was, and it's gone through the review, to continue this program at least through the next cycle. And then there's a variety of smaller consulting service contracts and remaining minor projects that are coming to conclusion, and those are delineated in the document. Moving now, and the State Department of Finance did not have any issues with those, is that correct? So that's why we're not showing them that way. Next, we go to the Thousand Oaks Boulevard redevelopment project area, and that's on page, starts on page 21, and it delineates the bond issue and other related loans. They're listed. And we also included what's called Topaz, the pass-through to the schools, and we do have money in the bank for that, a total of just under $6 million. And we also have $8.2 million for the Thousand Oaks Auto Mall street parking modification project. And that was the initial review approved and allowed by the state, as well as the Topaz. The local housing trust fund program, that's between the two project areas, that's $750,000, correct? The state had issue with that. We'll come back and talk about that. Some minor projects, including a pavement overlay, we have another couple $100,000 to wrap up on the boulevard, and that's an obligation with contracts. So the key projects delineated, we have the auto mall, we talked about that. The Thousand Oaks Boulevard street improvements, Thousand Oaks Boulevard undergrounding, the state took issue with that. The Discovery Center, the $5 million, the state took issue with that. And the payment overlay, I just mentioned that. The undergrounding of the utilities is 2 phases. The first phase is of $10.4 million, and then the second phase is $3.5 million. The first phase is money coming from the bond proceeds. We feel strongly that's an obligation. In 2005, we did the refunding bond. I'll say more about that when we get to that. And then the second phase is out of tax increment reserves. Moving on to page 24. No, is that right? Yeah, 24 delineates the pass-throughs, and the state is okay with that. And I did skip the property tax administration cost for the county, and that's about a $2.8 million benefit to the county. That's also in there. Okay, then on page 26, and I apologize for the format, but on page 26, it shows you the Newberry Road project area and its obligations. So it has the debt service from the 2002 refunding, and that's at about $6 million, and then the property tax administration fees to the county and some other related costs. As far as projects, which are listed on page 27, again, we have the towpath, the money for the schools at about 800, if I'm reading that right, it's very small print, $876,000. Then the Kelly Road acquisition and improvements, the amount of money associated with the bond issue is $3.8 million, and then another $8.9 million out of tax increment reserves for the drainage project, the drainage components and other aspects of the Kelly Road project. And then also, page 29, it delineates the pass-through agreements. Okay, so now back up here, the EOPS, as we mentioned, was submitted to the state. The State Department of Finance has reviewed it. There were several discussions between staff from the State Department of Finance and the city.
Correct.
The city provided backup documentation to the state. On April 9th, John Adams and I, our finance director and myself, we went up to Sacramento. We met with the 3 auditors that were assigned to this case. We went through all the line items. And as far as the Kelly Road project that was tied to bond proceeds, the Thousand Oaks Boulevard undergrounding of the utilities that were linked to the bond issue, they told us that those were acceptable. That they used the phrase that were good, those are in because they're in the bond issue. And they said the same thing with respect to the housing piece. They did have questions about the other projects. And it was interesting, then a week later, we get written findings from another auditor saying that they were not. We take strong issue and exception to that. So the State Department of Finance raised concerns about the following: Housing Trust Fund, Thousand Oaks Boulevard undergrounding, Herbs Road, Discovery Center, Timber School Historical Designation, Kelly Road. What's the next slide? Can I just see that? Okay, let's go back. I'll talk from the other one for a moment. The Housing Trust Fund, we feel very strongly that, and we've explained that one to you before, that should remain in there. And we can get into that if you have more questions on that. The undergrounding, feel very strongly about that because that was in the bond issue. And as the coach mentioned, we've been planning for this for many years, and we're pretty close to getting ready to go with it. In fact, if the state didn't do what it did, this project would be under construction right now today, maybe near completion. Herbs Road, that was about $1 million or $2 million. I can't remember the exact number to underground the utilities within the project area. And given the rules of the game here, our recommendation is to use the bond money for the boulevard undergrounding. Discovery Center, the $5 million. Let's go through the next slide, I think, because we'll catch up to it. Okay, yeah, let's go back. I'll go back, I'm sorry. The Housing Trust Fund, I'm sorry, I'm a little disoriented, but here's the information on that. We'll go past this, we can come back to that. Here's the undergrounding on the boulevard, and I'll just talk from here. This is the piece, this is the high school right here. So here you see the project that comes like this. So the high school benefits significantly from that. So here's some of the milestones. It's been contemplated for many years. There was the bond issue. It's been in our 5-year implementation plans. Here's the most recent one, 2010-2014, which was adopted a couple of years ago. Discovery Center, here's a rendering. I think some of the folks from the Discovery Center board will speak. There's some of the other renderings. That's been in the works for 15 years or so. Here's some of the milestones with that. We had the City General Fund did a grant years ago to help with that effort. We'll go to the next slide. And here's some of the more other points. Amount spent was $850,000 up through 22. The Discovery Center did get a grant from Verizon for $500,000, $300,000 from an anonymous donor. The council did approve a $5 million appropriation to help with that effort. And the Discovery Center sits here. This was also in the specific plan for the East Side development many years ago. It called out the land for it, so one could argue that the city provided several $1 million worth of land for this, because if the Discovery Center were to go out and buy the land, it would have to spend that type of money. And the rationale and the reason for the Discovery Center being such a vital component of all this was actually before I started working here, and I've been here since January 2000. My understanding is it wanted to augment the efforts of the school district and CLU in terms of getting young people excited about math, science, engineering, that type of thing, because the employers in our community and surrounding communities have a hard time getting young people with those skill sets. So the vision was, by having this, you get people excited about those disciplines. And so the city council, the redevelopment agency board of directors embraced it, and that was a location, and it's long been dedicated for them. And also the $5 million was really seed money to help inspire others to contribute. There's a lot of businesses in town, Amgen, Baxter, et cetera, said that once there's money on the table, they would then step up and put money in to help realize the goal of constructing the Discovery Center. The Kelly Road project, this is an aerial of it, and here's Kelly Road right here, Newberry Road on top. Newberry Road is a frontage street to the 101 freeway. This is the, I don't have a microphone, but this is the continuation school. So right, is it on? Yeah. There we go. Is it on? Okay, so here's the continuation school, and this back here is, this is a storage facility, and this is a bus maintenance facility.
Maintenance and warehouse.
Right. This little Kwanzaa hut type of facility. And so, or however you say it. So this has been in the works to be replaced and moved to a more appropriate location for probably decades now. So the effort, the intent here was to be of assistance to the school district to help them find a more suitable location in the city, where its redevelopment agency would have purchased this land and the buildings. That would allow the school district to find an alternative location for the continuation high school, as well as the bus maintenance facility. Here are some of the milestone dates. We've been at this for a very long time, 2 decades in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, ongoing discussions. A very involved process. In 2006, the district then set out to declare the property surplus, and we were going down the path to do the transaction. The city council actually had authorized, city council / redevelopment agency board had authorized an amount to purchase the property. There were appraisals done, and then the project was deferred in October 2007. The school district was going through some difficult decisions about school closures and so on, and for a variety of reasons, the project was put on hold. It was then picked up again in late 2009, 2010, and we basically reached a tentative agreement about a year ago, even before June 2011, and we're all set to go, and then the situation with redevelopment hit us. And that's just bad timing, but we're ready to go now, and we have been put on hold. Had the state not did what it had done, then we would be probably building a new continuation high school right now. And then also on that site, it's long been envisioned that we would have a family entertainment and recreational use facility, like ice hockey or a bowling alley, that type of thing, and some restaurants. So the recommendation at this point is to adopt the proposed resolutions approving and certifying the January to June 2012 ROPS in accordance with the health safety code. And staff is available if you have questions.
Weren't you gonna go back over the housing trust fund?
We can do that. We'll go back to that one. I may punt this one to John Prescott. Do you want to talk about it, or?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the city, a number of years ago, I think in 2008 or 2009, the city applied for a grant from the